Right, off you go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
That's easy!
Did you see that? Did you?
How are we brewing, people? Welcome to the stream. I'm your humble host, Lefty. This is the Brews at 10 on my left eye. Tuesday Brews Day. Hope you're all well. Odin Allfather, first in the chat. Thanks for sharing some of our content on your social media recently. That's a very good example. Hope they'll follow that excellent example from Odin Allfather. Big Jerry's also in the chat, and Sinead as well. Sinead Adams, very nice to see you this evening. Do hit thumbs up as you join us on stream, people. Take a few moments to get comfortable. Jump in the chat. Feel free to jump in the chat. If you're subscribed, you can do that immediately. If you're not subscribed, just hit the appropriate button, and 1 minute later, you can join others in discussion. Or simply berate me at your will, whichever you'd prefer to do. Hope you like the little pre-intro clips, pre-stream. That's why it's always worth getting to the Brews at 10 right on time. 10 bells, people. And Sinead Adams rocking the cups of tea in the chat. That's good to see as well. Yes, people with a fair old bit to get through. Including something that we didn't have time for on yesterday's stream. This apparent Your Party crisis. We'll take a look at that. There was another protest today outside Downing Street. The PSC were there. We're going to see what happened with that one, because there was very, well, I use the word interesting, very fleetingly, very lightly. More draconian than interesting. Yeah. A look at the protest and that rule that was brought in. No spoilers. Plus a few other smatterings of UK politics as well. Some of it's tied into Iran. Obviously, we'll be taking a look at the latest on the so-called US blockade. Blockade schmockade, I think. What else do we have? Well, plenty of other stuff anyway, worth sticking around for. Including some shocking information coming in about the climate crisis concerning global food shortages, this kind of thing, being tied into more frequent and severe natural disasters as a direct consequence of man-made climate change. But that's also going to hit people pretty hard financially as well. Yes, kind of sort of carrying on from the DOJ protest that happened in London. Another reminder, you can check out the full HD version of our footage, exclusive footage and interviews from that protest. A lot of our friends and friends of the channel involved as well. That is in the demonstration. So check it out. In fact, we're going to be hearing from one such participant as we get going, but we do have a comedy clip first, of course. Also, of course, have to thank all of the members on the channel. Thanks to new extra member since yesterday's stream. Well, renewed member, I believe. Bilderberg, if you're watching. Yes, renewing your personal memberships is very important, people, in helping us get towards and sustain ourselves above the target of 250. We have gotten there. Dipped over once or twice. But we appreciate the support wherever it comes from. There's also super chats and super stickers if you're watching live. Super thanks if you watch back later on, and a Buy Me a Coffee page. You can find the link for that in the description of any content on the channel. So go ahead and share it around, and you still haven't amended that far left column of people. What's going on, Bill? Oh, that's 2 strikes, mister. That's 2 strikes. Okay. Seriously though, do appreciate all of your support. Thank you once again. Good people. The marvellous members, the glorious Brew crew. Wonderful to see our community growing as well. Moisha's with us. Very good evening to you, Solidari-Tea. Hope you're well. Moisha's also taken action with Defend Our Juries in the past. I was just talking about Defend Our Juries. It was the very first placard action in Parliament Square, I believe. Oh no, it was the second one. Yeah. Well, good evening to all, and Grain Turner is with us in the chat also. Solidari-Tea. Yeah, it was a great sit at the weekend. It really was. But this is going to have to keep happening until either the Met or Shabana Mahmood, whomever, see sense, or the High Court, other bodies turn around and say, well, look now, you know, we're being serious, this is unlawful. More on that to come. That is on this stream, as well as on the streets of Britain. Plenty more of that.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Can dig it. Can dig a bit of comedy as well. We'll be kicking off with the latest from Nicole Jennis, who I've featured recently. Does great stuff about Gaza, has relentless seething hatred for Israel, it has to be said, and their genocidal war crimes, of course. Just reminding myself, I failed to put the link in the chat pre-stream, but there will be one. If you're watching back later, there's a good chance I will have remembered. Twixt now and when you watch, so... If you're not already familiar with fellow YouTuber Nicole Jennis, Jennes, that's the spelling of the surname. Go and subscribe. I've actually only seen the first bit of this one, so it'll mostly be a genuine first time reaction from me as well. I prefer to do that with the comedy clips as well, just for sort of genuine reactions on stream. Like to share the moment, share the laughs with you, good viewers. Why not? Why is the live chat not updated? There it is. It's been tweaking. This bastard blue arrow keeps cropping up. Something else to keep my eye on. Right, let's go with a clip. Nicole Janice.
Hello, White House emergency line if you're calling for help. Bold choice. America great again, make America great again. Woo-hoo. You have problems with your health insurance? Have you tried not getting sick? Hello, Department of Good Luck. What is your emergency beside noticing? You cannot afford living? Have you tried getting rich, like going to a TP USA event and scream, Judeo-Christian values, Judeo-Christian values? Works wonders. They cannot pay the gas. They cannot pay gas. They cannot pay gas. You regret your vote? Please regret it in silence. You're disturbing the donors. How dare you call us to ask if we do our job for you? Did you know that the entire planet is $315 trillion in debt? To who? Well, make America great. Hello, have you tried not having an opinion? Great again. No, Ben Shapiro did not enlist. That's just for Goyim and Caterpillar eyebrows. Breaking news, another international crisis just dropped. Please panic accordingly after we serve our pedophile masters. How do we expect you to leave? We don't. Just survive long enough to pay the taxes. Judeo-Christian values. Ma'am, please hold while we pretend we care. Ben Shapiro happens when mother and cousin are the same person. Okay. Yes, the Strait of Hormuz situation is awful. Block all shipments to Cuba now. They're blocked? Oh, since when? Good. Boop boop be doo. Health insurance? What do you want to insure? Are you still alive? Judeo-Christian values. Oh, are you hungry? Well, listen to Lindsey Graham. You will feel vomitish. Gas prices. Hello, historical confusion line. Who killed Kennedy? I don't know. Ask Charlie Kirk's wife.
This would probably literally be better than the actual level of customer service you'd get if there was an emergency hotline for the White House. Let's be honest. Have you noticed the dog bowl or pet bowl on the floor there with the Israel flag on it, filled with dry pet food?
We might have to release the Epstein files to distract of how bad the war is going in Iran. Don't worry, you can listen to the music of Kash Patel girlfriend. Ay. God bless our soldiers, especially the white ones. Oh, hello. No, opinions are out of stock. Would you like a distraction? The entire world is mocking us? Yes, but Israel is thanking us for sending our children to die for them. Shabbat Shalom. Oh, you're the family of a fallen soldier in Iran. Well, actually, we have an Israeli man in Washington and his house is flooded. So we have an emergency now, you understand, yeah? Judeo-Christian values. When Israelis spit on Christians and they bomb churches, that's our Lord talking with us that we must love white people. America. Put Ghislaine Maxwell at UN again. 'Cause this is my people and this is your land.
Quality. Nicole Janice. She also does collabs with Ty Hickey on No Media, NOOW Media. Also on YouTube. Check them both out.
Socialists. Oh my God.
We'll try and have a bit more You're watching the Brews at 10. It's quality streaming on my left eye. We'll continue the merriment as we go throughout the stream, hopefully. But we're going to kick off first with sort of a bit of a catch-up from the Defend Our Juries protest on Saturday. If you've already watched the HD version of the video, or you were on stream on Sunday, you might recall this interview with a friend of mine and fellow Mancunian, Joel. He's one of ours. And this is something he's put out on his social media recently, pertaining to the more, pertaining to politics on a broader scale, that is. But specifically, when you come across certain people, and I'm sure that you all have, as have I, who claim that they, quote, don't do politics, they're not interested in politics. Of course, there's a famous saying, if you don't do politics, politics does you. So he does a great job in this prose, almost rappy poetry, not rapping, but performance prose piece, I should say. Yeah, it's pretty cool, so let's check it out. And if you've not seen his interview, of course, he was one of the sitters at DOJ on Saturday. Check out our latest video. Do have it here. There we go.
I noticed that diesel was 50p more per litre at the pump today. But I told the man at the kiosk, I don't really do politics, so he said he'd knock that extra 50p off. Everything in Asda seemed a lot more expensive when I did the big shop this week. But I said to the woman on the till, I don't really do politics, so she said you could just charge me the prices from a couple of weeks earlier. I took the kids swimming in the river the other day, the same river we used to swim in when we were kids. But they've been really ill ever since, like throwing up a lot. I said to the doctor, I don't really do politics, so he said that should sort their bacterial infections, stomach bugs right out. My gran had a nasty fall the other day. It really hurt herself. The ambulance took 15 hours to arrive, and she spent the first night sleeping on the floor in a corridor. I said to the paramedic, I don't really do politics. And he said, that should sort out a shattered hip and a sepsis. No problem. The family up the road, Mo and Mandy and the kids, he works at the barber's on the corner. She's a TA at the primary school up the hill. Had their windows put through for the third time this month. They're saying they think they need to move away because they're just not safe around here anymore. I said to Mandy, I don't really do politics. And she said, oh, good. That should keep my kids safe. Jasmine got suspended from school yesterday. The teacher called up and said that Jasmine had asked in front of the whole class whether it's okay for girls to kiss other girls. The teacher said those kinds of questions aren't allowed anymore. And if it happens again, they're going to have to make that suspension permanent. I said to the teacher, we don't really do politics. And she said, oh, in that case, we can probably make an exception.
Yeah.
The weather lady says we're going to have our first 50-degree day next week. And people are advised, where possible, to stay indoors and keep their air conditioning on if they're lucky enough to be able to afford it. I said to the TV, I don't really do politics. The weather lady said, in that case, don't worry, it's only going to be 30 degrees. There's a military draft now, and Johnny's name got picked out the hat. I said to the recruitment officer, I don't really do politics. And he said, we don't give a fuck what you do or don't do. That sounds like traitor talk. You're not one of those dirty fucking commies, are you? Now get the fuck out of here. They brought Johnny's body back home today. They told us that any public expressions of regret over his death or questions about how he died would be viewed as treasonous and dealt with very, very harshly. Jasmine was at an illegal protest last night. They took her. I cried to God in the night. I don't really do politics. There was only silence in response.
Well said, Joel. Give it up for Joel. You either do politics or politics does you. That's the truth of it. He's a great guy, a great campaigner. I'm one of the 523 arrestees from the Defend Our Juries protest in Trafalgar Square on Saturday. Graham, that is excellent. You managed to get a hype on the latest video. Fantastic. Please do follow Graham's excellent example there, people. Log into YouTube accounts on your mobile devices, phones, tablets. Open our most recent video, hit the thumbs up button, and lo and behold, one of the latest features on YT will be revealed. Yes, hype points. You get a few videos worth per week, and we'd be much obliged if you'd share some of those with us. Thanks again for that, Graham. We have Doc in the house as well. Doc Davies, Solidari-Tea, brother. So there is more on Palestine coming up in the stream. That is pertaining to Israel's genocide, war crimes. Also Israel's actions against other countries, Iran, Lebanon, at the moment. Currently, and now threatening Turkey. But just because we're sort of staying in the channel of UK events and affairs, this is going to be classified as a UK story. Because it is about a UK protest, another protest that happened today in Downing Street. I've been arrested outside Downing Street, you know. This time, though, we weren't present. But the Canary were. Saw this opening clip, including an interview with the PSC, that's the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Sums up why they're there, and there's some unbelievable new legislation, new laws that have come in concerning repeated protest, so-called disruptive protest, more draconian stuff coming down from the upper echelons of power. This time, the banning of equipment, amplifiers, etc. I think it just actually says amplified sound, is the term in the legislation, is forbidden. And this comes off of the back of earlier legislation, something which was known as the Steve Bray Bill. Do you remember that one? Steve Bray, the campaigner for remaining in the EU, spent weeks on end, day after day, with his megaphone and stuff on the lawn of Parliament Square, following MPs around the place. That was when this first type of legislation came in, but it's now been specifically used against this protest because it took place at Downing Street and outside Parliament as well, with them not being a long distance away from each other. So shout out to the Canary for this interview, and then we're going to see a great testimony from a UK actress who was there as well on stage. Not at the microphone, because obviously microphones and PAs were forbidden. What a time to be alive.
So we're on Old Palace Yard, we're outside Parliament. MPs tonight are debating the crime and policing bill, including the government's amendment to increase the police's powers to clamp down and place restrictions on our right to protest. Ludicrously, based on the existing powers that the police have, they've already imposed a condition on us saying that we can't use any amplified noise on this protest. So we can't use megaphones, we can't use loudspeakers of any kind. This shows just how far our right to protest has already been curtailed, and if these measures go through Parliament tonight, they're going to give the police even greater powers to prevent protests on the grounds that they call so-called cumulative disruption, meaning because somebody else protested outside Parliament last week, you can be banned from protesting outside Parliament this week. It is an absolutely shocking example of the way that protest rights have been cut down and restricted and continue to be so.
So that means that you're basically vindicated in what you were protesting about. They've just proved it. Where do you see all of this going?
Well, I just think there is this deep authoritarian drift, which includes the unprecedented use of police restrictions to clamp down on protests in solidarity with the Palestinian people. It includes the outrageous prescription of Palestine Action as terrorists, the subsequent arrests of nearly 3,000 people, literally, for holding signs.
Yeah, you might have noticed there's a lot of noise in the background. Of course, one of the counter tactics to the ban on amplified sound was to make as much natural sound as possible, because they want the presence known whilst MPs are in Parliament, whilst Starmer's in Downing Street as well.
Prosecution of protest organisers like Ben Jamal and Chris Nynham. It's an authoritarian climate that is increasing under this government. We're already seeing the effects of it in terms of limiting our right to protest, and if this legislation goes through, it's set to get even worse.
And what do you think is going to look like resistance-wise if everything's illegal?
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to redouble our determination. Firstly, to continue to build the community of resistance, redouble our commitment to build the alliances we need to push back against this authoritarian drift, but also to carry on protesting, to continue to exercise our right to protest. You can see people are still making noise despite the ban on megaphones. We're still protesting. We'll be protesting again on Friday. We need people out on the streets in unprecedented numbers on the 16th of May.
That's this Friday, people. If you're in the London area, I'd encourage you to go and show some support. They really need it, because you know, can't spend too much time getting this message across to the UK government about its complicity in these abhorrent crimes.
For the Nakba Day march, in response to the attempts by far-right groups who have no problem securing the whole of central London for their protests in order, they hope, to drive the Palestine movement off the streets. So we've just got to keep on carrying on, keep on building the movement, and show that we won't be silenced.
What's happening on Friday? Where can people get more info?
On Friday, we're holding a protest to mark Palestinian Prisoners' Day. We're going to be outside Downing Street from 6 o'clock. We're going to be highlighting the grotesque abuse of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails, including the disgusting execution law recently passed by the Israeli parliament, allowing them effectively to lynch Palestinian prisoners.
And where can people get more info about
People can get more info if they look at PSC's social media and our website and our coalition partners.
And what's PSC?
The Palestine Solidarity Campaign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So a double-ended week of protest for the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign there. 6 o'clock on Friday. Place to be, Parliament Square on Downing Street. Of course, yeah, take your drums, take your kazoos, as Doc Davies recommends in the chat. Not sure about jackhammers, though. I don't think anything that is powered by battery or electricity, whether it is in a stored or current form. Yeah. Kazoos, why not? Could catch on. Could really catch on. Yeah. Shout out again to the Canary. Excellent footage. Very good alternative media there. Because it's better than the drivel that's on your TVs, let's be honest, people. So there were a series of speakers having to speak very loudly. Fortunately, they had people who are trained in projecting their voice as actors, and Juliet Stevenson, of course, is one such person. She's also, as well as being a well-known British actress, a great campaigner, excuse me, for a variety of causes, including, of course, support for Gaza. Let's see what she had to say.
I hope you can hear. As Israel's genocide against the Palestinian people escalates under the shadow of the horrific and illegal US-Israel strikes on Iran and Lebanon, the British government continues to be complicit and is intensifying its attempts to repress our rights. And we know why. In order to distract from its complicity in Israel's atrocities and to try to keep us from protesting. So that's why we are here this evening, to oppose a draconian piece of legislation that the government is trying to push through Parliament via the crime and policing bill right now in that building.
When you think about it, in the last 72 hours, we've had 523 or more arrests in Trafalgar Square for people standing up against an unlawful prescription of a protest group, and then now more protest rights being taken away. I mean, how many steps away from the right to collective assembly are we? It's wholesale, piecemeal, outright, in totalis. It can't be that many. It can't be that many steps away from something as authoritarian as that. Because this kind of legislation is the absolute, and forgive the pun concerning the last clip, but the canary in the coal mine for things even more severe. But again, it goes to show why we have to stand up and fight for our rights. Generations have fought to either win or sustain and maintain these protest rights, and we're not going to let them go. I'm not going to say we're not going to let them go easily, but we are not going to let them go. Because if we are, then what are we? But a nation of slaves? It'd be easy to argue, without sounding too dramatic or hyperbolic. 72 hours, people, 72 hours, and two such protests, two such reactions from the police and the executive.
If it becomes law, it will give police unprecedented powers to effectively ban repeat protests because of their so-called cumulative disruption. This pernicious attack on our civil liberties makes explicit the lengths that the government will go to in order to maintain its complicity in Israel's genocide against the Palestinian people. Civil society, trade unions, MPs, peers, lawyers and legal experts have all condemned this. I've been told that MPs can hear us in there. I'm not sure they can. So we need to make sure they do as we demand that they oppose it. This government knows that protest is most effective when it's repeated. When has a protest movement ever been a single event? The whole point of a movement is that it builds pressure and momentum until it is heard. The only reason that there's a need for repeated protests is that this government remains deaf, willfully, brutally and stubbornly deaf. But of course only selectively so, not deaf to the right-wing think tanks, not deaf to arms manufacturers and not deaf to Zionist lobbies.
No, they're not deaf to the sound of briefcases opening either. As Juliet points out, yeah, they're very selective in who they do or don't pay attention to. We know who owns these people. We know who has their money invested in politicians, because that's what they are. They're financial assets for the lobbies, for APAC, for fossil fuel companies, for private healthcare companies, for the likes of Palantir that have their hands in so many dirty pies. It's just fucking revolting, the amount of corruption and repeated protest, yes, is the only solution. Certainly where non-violent direct action goes, I can say from experience and knowledge that it's very rare that people take that kind of action only once. It tends to be part of a sustained action, whether it's during action phases as they are, or simply because you see how effective it is, you see how it works, and yes, depending on how it is that you choose to take non-violent direct action, there can be a range of consequences. But even those who have faced the more severe of those consequences are certainly undeterred. I can say from experience and from a lot of people who I know. Got to keep it up. However it is that we do it, however it is that we stand up to the government, we cannot let our foot off the accelerator for one moment. God, I think it was one of the interviews I did on Saturday. You know, if you do consider taking your foot off the accelerator for a moment, give them an inch, they'll take a mile, and they'll take your entire country. Because once these rights are gone, you won't get them back unless there's a severe social or political revolution as well.
Let's always remember, the right of free assembly is a precious and basic human right, ostensibly cherished by democracies such as the UK and the USA, that castigate countries such as Iran and China, who also clamp down on protest. History offers us many proud and honourable examples of cumulative protest that have sometimes continued over the passage of many years, even decades. The civil rights movement in the US, the campaign for women's suffrage here in the UK, and the movement against apartheid in South Africa all relied on the cumulative impact of repeated protests, year in, year out. And that's why they are trying to stop us. But it won't work. Our growing movement has built one of the largest and most sustained protest movements in British political history. It has brought together the widest range of people from every conceivable background and all walks of life. That's what you see, don't you, on every demonstration. And so it is particularly grotesque that the government is trying to say that this new law would make anyone safer, at exactly the same time as it continues to permit far-right mobilizations outside asylum hotels and far-right demonstrations where violence is incited from the stage. As you will know, the police have favoured Tommy Robinson and his followers and allowed and allocated them the political centre of London over the annual Nakba Day March. I have added my name to nearly 200 others on a statement condemning this shocking decision and demanding that it be overturned. The government's hypocrisy and doublespeak is palpable. We know that the piece of legislation the government is trying to push through today is all part of the government's wider project to demonise this movement, including the unlawful prescription of non-violent direct action group Palestine Action, its unsuccessful prosecution of performance artists, and the criminalisation of entirely peaceful protesters like those over 500 people of conscience who were arrested last weekend. But these attempts to silence us will not work. Ongoing complicity means ongoing demonstrations. And taking inspiration from the unbreakable resilience of the Palestinian people, we know that the best way to push back against repression is to keep on campaigning. And we will do exactly that. The next national demonstration for Palestine is on 16th of May to commemorate the Nakba, where it is more important than ever that we mobilise in huge numbers to reassert that we will not stop until peace and safety is restored to Palestine and to Lebanon, and until all Palestinians live in freedom. So I'll end on this, in the words of the inspirational humanitarian Dr. Hassan Abu Sita. These are his words. It is your world to fight for. It is your tomorrow to make. We will own tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a Palestinian day. See you on May the 16th.
Once again, that's this Friday, 6 p.m. Right in the beating heart of political Westminster. I'm going to have 4 more, I think, over that one. I'm able to make that. But don't worry, we'll have plenty of other on the scene footage coming up over coming weeks. Very well said there. Take a couple of quick, light-hearted steps back for a moment. We will be carrying on with the matter of protest surrounding Palestine, surrounding Gaza, more specifically with the retrial of 6 of the Filton 24, and not just worryingly, of course, the attempt to attach the label of terrorists to these kind of protesters, but also, very worryingly, an apparent mainstream media blackout concerning the reporting of information and evidence that may, allegedly, be being withheld from the jury in the trial. So we'll be taking a look at that just after, like I said, a couple of brief light-hearted moments. Another one from the Canary, and another one of these vox pops from the guy in the Union Jack suit, the Union flag suit. It's only the Union Jack when it's at sea, you see. And this one's really good, because sometimes you get a pleasant surprise with these vox pops, and interrupts, well, doesn't interrupt, but manages to get the attention of a very based member of the public from wherever they do these videos. I think he does like to do them in places like Clacton-on-Sea, places that poll highly for reform or have a reform MP, whether it's by election or defection. So take a look at this guy with a really nice positive message. I think I just wanted to share this one with you.
If it wasn't for immigrants, the NHS would be no more. A lot of immigrants who come and work here are more inclined to want to work than a lot of the locals who are prepared to sit on their arse and do nothing and expect the government to hand it out.
What is your opinion then of people that are really angry about immigration?
Why are they? I know someone that always says they can blame everything on these little boats coming over to the UK. What an absolute load of crap. If you were in a position where your country was so dreadfully awful and you thought, well, I can get a boat and come here, you'd take it too, wouldn't you?
Do you want to come around with me, get a Union Jack suit and we can wander around the country together?
It'd be wonderful. I'd love to wear a Union Jack suit. Everyone just needs to love. Just work together to make everything cool for everyone.
Oh. I'd watch that. I would totally watch that. They should get a series together or something. Set up their own side gig, side channel, whatever. I must learn this fellow's name in the Union flag suits. That's at least the third time I've put him on stream. But it's the Canary. I get you credit the Canary. Maybe he doesn't want his name being revealed. Because far-right people will go on his social media and call him a pissing, woke student, blah blah blah. That's good. That's the kind of attitude you want to get when you're doing Vox Pops. We don't really do Vox Pops at the moment on My Left Eye. I'm not saying it's beneath us or it's an act of desperation, just go out and grab some random people on the street and see what they think. No, far from it. As a sociologist, of course. Always good, but who knows? We might be doing some of that ourselves in the not too distant future. Okay, the next positive one, and it's 30p Lee. It's been caught out again. Yes, people. What is it this time? Well, it's not just 30p Lee. It's reform in their entirety. Because they've been at it again. Just last week. They presented a large fake cheque to a member of a household who had won, and in fact had won on behalf of her entire street, a year's worth of free energy bills, I believe. And it just so happens that the lady who won was a Reform voter. Probably has Nigel Farage's direct number in a phone book. But this time, it's the fuel again. Remember, in before the energy bills freebies. This is bribery. This is straight up bribery. Let's be honest with ourselves, bribing voters. There is an investigation happening into this. They've got previous for it. So it's the giving away of discounted fuel or selling of discounted fuel again. But this time, a member of the public, one lady, and more power to her, seeing Lee Anderson giving a piece to camera, went over and immediately started giving out to him. It was a pretty brief encounter. And then they seem to bring in, maybe they carry around emergency, very atypical looking Reform voter people to ask for a picture or an autograph to try and A, break the moment of tension, and B, to make it seem as though, of course, the person who's criticising Lee Anderson is not part of a majority view. Wouldn't be surprised. It's Lee Anderson. We're talking about the guy who got one of his friends to pretend to be a stranger when he was canvassing and left his clip-on mic on. In the moment shortly before when he rang him up and to set it all up and told him to pretend that he didn't know him. Classic clip, I'm sure you all. Most of you know what I'm referring to. Let's see this one.
Flags went up before the potholes were sorted.
Just 1 second, I can't hear this. I need to just monitor it. So, drag it back to the start. She's there straight away. Doesn't hold back much either.
Flags went up before the potholes were sorted.
She's concerned about potholes, so she's talking about the flags. She says one thing right at the end about the flags as well, it's really good. But yeah, they were more concerned about blowing a dog whistle for far-right xenophobes and racists than they were for sorting out potholes, things like that, things that she's concerned about, and a whole host of other things, I'm certain.
You could not tell the truth if your life depended on it. So get your silly little racist flags and stick them where the sun doesn't shine. It's pathetic. You're pathetic.
It's very nice to meet you. Have a lovely day.
Oh yeah, if the camera wasn't on, I'm sure he'd be like, you know, oh, it was very nice to meet you. Have a lovely day. Me, 30p Lee, nice man. No, it'd be being a right twat, so you can put it that way. So then they bring in, quick, get the emergency guy out again. Here he is. I actually, and he's looking at his hand at the pre-written script that he's. Can I have a picture?
Yes, mate. Oh, man. Just take a photo, please.
There you go. I just happen to have fucking turquoisey teal fucking top on as well. Maybe he does. Maybe it is a genuine. But would you be utterly shocked as well? Just happens to have the Reform colours on. Can't make it. Or is it a football sports thing? I can't make out the logo.
Come to Ashfield, you can see the potholes being mended.
I used to teach in Ashfield, actually, and it's appalling.
There's no wonder our kids' brains are messed up.
What did you say there? Let's skip it back.
Come to Ashfield, you can see the potholes being mended.
I used to teach in Ashfield, actually, and it's appalling.
There's no wonder our kids' brains are messed up.
She used to teach at the school that she was pointing at. I think I couldn't hear what she said about that, but it wasn't anything good, and she said it was thanks to you. So this must be an area where, you know, they do hold the council or whatnot, and they've completely run it into the ground.
Every opportunity.
The potholed ground by the sound of it. More power to that lady. Let's just see the first bit again, because that was quality.
Flags went up.
This is how you should address your local deformed candidate, should you ever be so unfortunate as to find yourself at the same place in space and time, which is of course the same thing.
Before the potholes were sorted. You could not tell the truth if your life depended on it. So get your silly little racist flags and stick them where the sun doesn't shine. It's pathetic.
Those 2 seconds there, I think, will go down in the annals of clipping history somehow. I think my left eye will be sticking that one in our left pocket for now. Let it be identified and applauded and awarded. In fact, give her the key to whichever place, tragically, is being run into the ground by Reform. 3 weeks and 2 days to the locals. Okay, people, back on some more serious matters. I wish that we could watch members of Reform or Labour or the Tories or even Lib Dem being publicly berated all night long. Alas, that's the only clip that I currently have access to of a recent example. Get on with the retrial of the Filton 24.
On with it. Yes, get on with it. Get on with it.
So, a complete media blackout, as I said. However, that doesn't mean that the internet exists and that people in other countries aren't subject to said blackout. Because the government are really smart, you know. So Max Blumenthal from Greyzone is going to explain a bit about this. And then we're going to hear from someone in Parliament who had to use their parliamentary privilege, in fact, to bring this up as an urgent matter of concern as well. If you've not seen the clip, I won't say who it is until I play it, because that's called dramatic suspense. Well, let's see this essential and not too lengthy explanation from Max Blumenthal.
Day of a shockingly corrupted trial that exposes the British state's weaponization of censorship to crush a direct action anti-war protest group has just ended. On April 13th, 6 activists from Palestine Action went back to court after being acquitted this February. They had already served a year in prison, in which they staged a hunger strike and one attempted suicide under extremely harsh conditions. If convicted, the 6 Palestine Action activists and 18 others will likely be sentenced as terrorists, facing long prison terms. However, the jury is not allowed to know that about the terrorist designation. They are
That's right.
Instead being led to believe that they're ruling on simple criminal charges. And if they do convict the defendants on those charges, the judge, a notoriously biased former barrister for the MI6 and Metropolitan Police,
Complete bastard,
named Jeremy Johnson, can then sentence them as terrorists. What's more, a court order prevents the British media from reporting any of the facts that I have just conveyed to you. Activists will similarly be prohibited from telling jurors how their efforts sought to impede the genocide. They can't provide context at all. They're not allowed to mention Israel, the term genocide, or the target of their direct action, Israel's state-owned Elbit Systems Weapons Company.
That's appalling. And you've seen similar tactics used for climate protesters as well in courts. Many friends of mine been denied the opportunity to explain their motivations behind the protest. Again, you know, for example, a burglar might explain why they stole somebody's private property in court. However, a climate protester may not mention climate science or discuss the climate crisis. Now they're applying this to protest against war crimes.
Let's be completely clear. Nothing that Palestine Action has done meets the commonly understood definition of terrorism, which is subjective anyway. British national security officials admitted this during a secret meeting when they said that Palestine Action's activities were mostly confined to criminal damage,
Yeah, hey Davinia, it's total kangaroo court shit, this. It's been obviously set up with bias. It's rigged. They're rigging the system. Everybody knows. The dice are loaded. Everybody knows.
Not terrorism. And here's something else you're not allowed to know if you're in the UK. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper committed contempt of court for falsely alleging that Palestine Action deliberately targets people with acts.
Boo, boo, Yvette Cooper. Come on, chat. Boo. Fucking boo. Yeah. God, she's terrible. Fucking ghastly Yvette. Soulless, dead behind the eyes Cooper. God. She belongs on some sort of awesome comedy test card on a live stream that takes place on Sunday evenings or something.
The violence. The reality is that this group's activism focuses on destroying weapons and damaging and occupying Israeli arms factories on British soil. Instead of aiming to harm people, they are trying to save the lives of Palestinian civilians subjected to ethnic cleansing and genocide. I personally believe what they have done is the contemporary equivalent of sabotaging the railways to Auschwitz. What Palestine Action does is also very effective, causing the...
That's not a fantastical comparison either, is it, in terms of industrial sabotage, as a historical comparison. I don't think I've heard that one before.
Closure of Israeli factories and raising the cost of Israel's apartheid system. They're presenting a workable model for activists around the world seeking to do something more materially meaningful than simply marching and chanting slogans. And when they have been put on trial, juries have responded sympathetically when defendants explained why they had targeted Israeli arms factories, and this has led to a series of dramatic acquittals. Now, the British security state is so threatened by the prospect of further acquittals that it is corrupting the entire jury system and perverting whatever's left of its democracy, all to protect an ethno-supremacist entity called Israel from the consequences of its genocidal actions. Because the British public has been forbidden from learning these important facts, the responsibility has fallen to us at the Gray Zone to report them. We are an independent, US-based outlet whose mission is to tell you what they don't want you to know.
The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. Excellent stuff from the Grey Zone and Max Blumenthal. We're going to take a look at the House of Commons. I believe this was a session today. And MP for Coventry South, Zara Sultana, used her parliamentary privilege to bring this to the attention of the Commons because this simply cannot stand.
Deputy Speaker, I'm going to exercise privilege of this House to place something on public record that the mainstream press have chosen to ignore. 6 Palestine Action activists face retrial after being acquitted in February following a year in prison. If convicted, they and 18 others will be sentenced as terrorists, but the jury will not be told that. They could convict them on criminal damage charges with no idea that terrorism sentences will follow. Madam Deputy Speaker, not a single terrorism charge has been brought forward.
So, essentially, if they're convicted, they will be classed as terrorists, although the jury won't be aware that they will be classed as terrorists. That's what it boils down to. That information is being withheld from the jury in Britain in 2026.
Prescription has been ruled unlawful, and the defendants themselves have been banned from telling the jury that they acted to stop genocide under threat of contempt charges. This is what a stitch-up looks like, and it's part of the same pattern. A Labour government that will do whatever it takes to silence dissent, protect Israeli death factories, and escape accountability.
God, look at them. They're on the bloody phones, and one of them's reading the order paper. For God's sake. These are people's fundamental rights. This concerns the fundamental right to protest. And the misuse of terrorism legislation as well. It can't be overstated. Just how severe the misuse of that legislation is with this.
To conclude my...
Zara Sultana there, from just a brief clip. Independent / your party MP for Coventry South, and I say that in an attempt to make an excellent segue into the next item, the next story. Do let us know what you think about that matter, of course, in chat. That was from a session earlier today, I believe, Aaron. If you want to check it out, it's on, might be on iPlayer, BBC Parliament, or UK Parliament on YouTube, for example. Yeah, none of them care, they're all bought, as you say there, Davinia. So yes, next item, I will need to share this article with you first, before we see an official statement on this. I have to approach the following with a certain amount of tact, diplomatic tact, if I can. This information comes from the excellent Stats for Lefties, great provider of polls, projections, use them very regularly on streams. Though it does come from, shall we say, a critical standpoint of your party, that some people have accused that account of doing. I'm not going to get into any of that. As I said, I just want the stats. They were the first to bring this to my attention, and there was an article in the National, Scottish National. So it wasn't just hearsay, as I said before. There have been some accusations made against that account, but I won't get into that. This is their stated source on the matter, so we're going to take a look at this article by Hamish Morrison. Because, well, kicks off with the quote, "Your party Scotland is over." Its leaders have said as they resigned from Jeremy Corbyn's political party. This is in Scotland exclusively. I'll just share this with you now. Know that it does identify the page. There we go. It's always handy when that happens. I'll even align it properly for your pleasure. Just wait for a bit of Buffering. It's the friggin' ads that slow things down, isn't it? The 12-strong interim Scottish Executive Committee have all quit, accusing the UK leadership of a, quote, generational fumble, as they announced they would set up a rival outfit. The party were accused of blocking Scottish activists' attempts to contest the upcoming Holyrood election, and the party's UK High Command was also said to have consistently ignored the one Scottish representative on its ruling body. In a joint statement, the outgoing Scottish Leadership Committee said, as a result of this consistent denial of autonomy for Scotland and a willingness by the UK leadership to sideline an entire nation by withholding funding and mailing lists and refusing to engage, we have, after careful thought and consideration, taken the collective decision to resign our positions on the committee, having found ourselves completely blocked when we attempted to carry out the clear mandate set for us by members from across Scotland. Christ, that was a fucking sentence. That was a sentence, and I even abbreviated the fucking square brackets. So this happened after a meeting on Sunday, which saw Niall Christie, the Scottish representative, prevented from putting forward measures to allow the Scottish Party to the ability to contact members. That has crashed. There we go. Oh, it's very good. Just another couple of quotes here. No serious attempt to unite the left can be done through purges of socialists or by disregarding entire nations and their representatives, said the outgoing Scottish member. 12 of them it was. Generational fumble. Well, I don't know. I'd have to be honest, I wouldn't fancy, being honest, your party's chances in Scotland too much. It looks set to be a SNP majority. Even the Green Party are having little impact there. Speaking of which, I think the Green Party also launched their Welsh campaign today. Not certain. They should maybe lay this one down and see it as, of course, Welsh independence, seeing out reform. That's for the locals I was referring to, of course, as well as the Welsh Assembly. So, but back to Scotland. How impactful, I say impactful, remains to be seen, because really, unfortunately, they haven't thus far had the amount of impact that I was hoping that they would. They certainly look hot on the scene when they first announced its existence and so on, but we seem a very long way away from those days at the moment when they were getting all of those sign-ups. But they've put out a statement for what it's worth on this. Just to add to what I just said as well, I was hopefully expecting a Green and your party sort of double-edged sword movement, as it were, cutting through politics. But at the moment it does look like the Greens who are making all of the advances and gains. But I'm not writing your party off entirely, I'm not saying that, of course. It's just that if they are going to get going, it's certainly taking a lot longer than I was expecting, or perhaps even hoping for. What's their official stance? on matters north of the border. This is what they've put out. We thank Neil and members of the Volunteer Interim Committee for their contribution to support members in Scotland at an early stage of the party's development. We understand these members disagreed with the vote taken by Scottish members not to stand candidates for the upcoming Holyrood elections. That is their right. Following our Executive Committee's decision earlier this month, your party has already begun to work through establishing a Scottish Nations Working Group through sortition, ensuring a representative body drawn from across the whole membership in Scotland. This approach is about strengthening participation, transparency and long-term stability. It creates the conditions for meaningful member engagement, the development of Scottish branch structures and the preparation of elections for a permanent Scottish Executive Committee, the democratic structures that Scottish members voted for and deserve. Every decision about your party in Scotland will be taken by members in Scotland. We understand there are differing views during a period of transition. Our responsibility is to put in place clear, fair and workable structures that serve all members in Scotland, and we remain committed to doing so. Finally, he says, or this says, Scottish members remain full members of your party, will be in touch directly with updates on the nation's working group and next steps in the coming days. Any Scottish Your Party members watching, I'd like to know your thoughts on this. It certainly seems to me it's giving off vibes of, well, we're just going to replace you. You don't like the way that members have voted, that Scottish members have voted. It's not like, you know, tough, but we'll get somebody else. But I'm not saying it's that harsh or anything. That's yeah, as blunt as you can put it, really. But they seem sincere in the disappointment. This, of course, doesn't mean that your party's collapsed in its entirety. They've just they've got another issue, this time concerning Scotland. Thoughts, please. JK, you think the Greens have been infiltrating your party to try and wreck it? That'd be a hot potato if we went into that. I can say that I've not seen any direct, clear evidence to that effect. But I'm pretty certain that certain agents that didn't have the best of intentions perhaps did the best inside the conference, which was last November. I think there's a few bits of evidence that, again, that's a hot potato. We'll be here all night, but we do have to get on to other matters. Just a couple of final points on UK politics. Bring up an article here, just to very quickly mention. So out of all of the major economies in the world, the UK sets to take the biggest hit to growth as a consequence of the Iran war. That's according to the IMF. Let's see what's happening. Yeah, we could have maybe stayed out of this, maybe turned Donald Trump down. And it would have been a case of, oh, don't get too worried that Donald Trump's become the first US president to fall for Netanyahu's bullshit on Iran, because nobody's going to facilitate him. Their bombers can't reach that far. But up steps Starmer. No, we've got you, Donald. We've got you back. And this is the fallout. These are the economic, immediate consequences here in the UK. Nice move, Keith. Yep, this is delivering the plan for change. Right here, right in front of our eyes. But hey, there were a really small amount of preschool breakfast clubs or something once upon a time. No, this is bad. It's a projected cut of over a third, or roughly a third, from 1.3 to 0.8 in terms of economic growth. So even, from a capitalist standpoint, we're going to get hit by this. This is higher bills, this is higher food costs, which is something I'll be going into a little bit later on the stream. That also ties in with the climate crisis as well. Just sticking with this though. Of all of the developed nations in the world, just sort this live chat out. Apologies, it's a bit delayed. Got a few. Got Holy ASDFG in the chat as well. Sultan Steve. Nice to see you both. Who else do we have? I might have just landed in. Sorry if I've not been keeping up with the live chat. London Cheesehead is also with us. He brings the cheese. I'll bring the fucking cheese, mates. Welcome one, welcome all. Right. Enough laughter. We've got to get back to the doom and gloom. Thank you very much. Well, that's a massive downgrade, isn't it? Massive downgrade. Similar projection made by the OECD last month predicted the biggest hit to economic growth out of the G20 major economies. That's the top 20 so-called biggest economies, which are fake, in the world. Percentages charts, which I'm not going to go through for the sake of brevity. Just try and pick out a few more important stats. Of course, inflation comes into this. Yes, we're getting it in both ends. 3.2% this year and 2.4% next. On a similar course to the United States and Italy, who of course currently have great economic reputation. Dragging us down, aren't they? Oil's averaging $110 a barrel. It's going to go up to 125 next year. Energy prices and interest rates continuing to rise. A global recession would be a close call. I've been saying for about the last 2 years. Probably be able to expect something of an almost total societal collapse somewhere between 2035 and 2040. And again, that's based on science. This is no tin hat theory of mine. I'm just relaying the opinions of fantastic scientists, including great climate scientist Professor Bill Maguire, etc. But I'm half tempted to maybe draw that date a little nearer to the present now with these, because this, along with a lack of food sustainability, as well as an increase in cost, like I said, something I'm going to go on to pretty shortly. It's very foreboding. It really is foreboding. Point number one, of course, we still have years of the pumpkin spice Palpatine left in the White House. Similarly, however unpopular Keir Starmer gets, however low he polls personally, or the Labour Party do in their entirety, I don't think he's going to step down. He's going to have to be voted out, or it's going to be a vote of no confidence. So that doesn't bode well for the UK either. And he's gone and done it this time, hasn't he? He's really gone and done it. Keith Rodney Starmer, what have you done? Of course, renewables are an obvious solution to one of those problems. Wouldn't expect any great leaps and bounds where Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband are concerned. Yes, so, well, as stated in chat, we can expect higher petrol, diesel and cheese. Which of those do you consume the most? Let us know in chat, or if you're watching back later in the comments, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. You're watching the Brews at 10 on my left eye. That's as voiceovery as I'll get this evening, I think. Yeah, so all shit, pretty much. Light speed tractor. Light speed tractor. Unfortunately, a tractor would have mass. Love the name though. Love the name. If only. But unfortunately, equals MC squared, etc. Yeah, it's really shit. It's really foreboding. It's bad news. Unfortunately, gotta share it though. This is the world we live in. Yes, mass renewable energy. An energy revolution is what the world needs. We've got to set a good example in this country with wind and tidal. Don't let anybody try and tell you that nuclear is a better option. That takes ages to set up comparatively. Don't let anybody tell you that there aren't any decent storage solutions out there either. Of course. Sometimes you only have to scratch beneath the surface to see that those kind of opinions come from people who have, coincidentally, somewhat close links to the fossil fuel industry. Okay, people. Final bit on UK stuff before we go broader into US blockade, so-called blockade, as well as a pretty sensational appearance in European Parliament that happened yesterday, I believe. Something quite sensational, don't want to say too much about it for the sake of shock value. But this concerns a UK politician. However, it's a statement from the current Mayor of New York, the Socialist Mayor Mandani, who will forgive for mispronouncing Margaret Thatcher's surname. If you listen closely, I think he pronounced it Catcher or something like that. But of course it should be pronounced absolute bitch. great statement, nonetheless, though, referring to the historical quote from her about socialism being bad because eventually you run out of other people's money.
I have thought often of the Margaret Thatcher quote. The problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. If anything, my friends, it seems that you eventually need a socialist to clean up the mess.
It's true. Just like when the stock market nearly brings the world to the brink of absolute destruction every decade and a half or so. How overdue are we for the next one? Oh, that doesn't look good, does it? Yeah, and I suppose it's all of our money that they're going to run out of. Remember, there's no public money. Sorry. Yeah, it's all public money.
On January
And you get it by taxation of the rich, by the way.
1st, I told New Yorkers that City Hall would hold a singular purpose: to make this city belong to more of its people than it did the day before. For 102 days, we have endeavored to do exactly that, delivering both public goods and public excellence.
Yep, Mayor Mandani there, in his 100-day address. Has it really been 100 days? Well, time flies, even though a week's a long time in politics. Just quasi-bizarre to see him quoting the deceased former Prime Minister, leader of the Tory party in the 80s. Mostly in the 80s. Yeah, if you want to get technical, she got elected in 79, mate. Fair enough. I do try and recall of such historic calendar dates, right? There's a wider world out there, and we spoke about UK matters for quite a while. We've also mentioned, of course, Palestine and Israel, and get a load of this, people. This is quite... Could you imagine anything like this happening in the House of Commons? No spoilers in chat, please, if you've already seen this. So it's Polish Member of Parliament, MP Berkowicz, and does something rather sensational here. It is in Polish, however, I am going to attempt to provide a running translation, because not just what you'll see at the end is sensational, most of what he says is as well, and that is in terms of detail about some of the things that are happening in Gaza. So, I will therefore hereby formally warn you that I'm about to, in quoting this MP, that is, describe some pretty horrific things that happen to Palestinians, including children. It's only a short clip, but for those of a nervous disposition, for example, what physically happens to the body when inhaling phosphorus gas, then just mute for a few moments or so, and then come back. But that's just a fair warning, I guess. Don't want to launch into that without having said that. Right, how best to do this? Yeah, I'll try and pause as we go, I think. Okay. I've got this in my headphones yet. Sorry, I didn't have the audio there.
Ataki Izraela na Bliskim Wschodzie odczuwają już Polacy w cenach paliwa, ale jak odczuwają to dzieci, których zginęło już kilkadziesiąt razy więcej.
Starts by saying that Israel's attacks in the Middle East are already felt by Poles at the fuel pumps with fuel prices. But then he asks, how do children feel who've died several dozen times more than during the entire war on Ukraine?
Więcej niż podczas całej wojny na Ukrainie. Otóż tak, że Żydzi stosują zakazaną bombę fosforową, która pochłania tlen z powietrza i doprowadza do ich śmierci przez uduszenie. Więcej, dym z tej bomby dostaje się do płuc i pali je od środka. One duszą się i palą się od środka jednocześnie. Kilkadziesiąt tysięcy kobiet i dzieci. Ale...
Anyone who, yeah. So he goes on to say that Israel also used forbidden phosphorus bombs, which absorb oxygen from the air and lead to death by suffocation. More smoke then enters the lungs and burns them from the inside, and they suffocate and burn at the same time. And they've done this to tens of thousands of women and children. But it arguably gets even worse.
Jak jakiemuś dziecku się poszczęści, się nie udusi.
This is in the Polish Parliament, Graham.
To biały fosfor przyklei się do policzka, do rączki i wypala się przez tkanki do kości. Nie da się tego zgasić, więc odcina się policzek.
But if a child is lucky enough not to choke, the white phosphorus also sticks to cheekbones and hands. And it burns through skin, flesh, tissue, as it does so.
Amputuje się rączkę. Izrael dokonuje na naszych oczach ludobójstwa ze szczególnym okrucieństwem.
And, well, this is the moment where he makes this gesture. You might have noticed rolled up poster there, just next to his hand as he was making that statement. But then he goes on to say that Israel commits genocide with special cruelty before our very eyes, and that they are, and he calls them the new Third Reich, and he says its flag should look exactly like this, which you're going to see now.
To nowa Trzecia Rzesza i jego flaga powinna wyglądać dokładnie tak.
Now, I might have to trim this out if anybody's watching back later on for obvious reasons, depictions of certain symbology, even though it's in this context, you know. Well, point being, the speaker then tries to berate him and says that obviously he's not allowed to do this. Says it's, well, he tries to say it's unjustified. But all he's doing is obviously making a simple comparison of war crimes. This is coming from within the Polish Parliament, and certainly Poland historically would know, unfortunately, a great deal about the crimes of the fascists during the 1930s and 40s.
Dziękuję.
You can also hear some support coming from other members of Parliament. One or two gasps and one or two boos, but more claps than boos.
Pan poseł Maciej Konieczny, Koło Razem.
So that was quite...
Amputuje się rączkę.
That's pretty radical stuff there.
Izrael dokonuje na naszych oczach ludobójstwa ze szczególnym okrucieństwem. Izrael to nowa Trzecia Rzesza i jego flaga powinna wyglądać dokładnie tak.
Dziękuję. Pan poseł Maciej Konieczny, Koło Razem.
Well, that was quite something. I really can't imagine that happening in the House of Commons or anything like that. Sarah Sultana once attempted to use a prop to illustrate, highlight the targeting of women and children, I believe, some time ago, and was berated, but nothing as perhaps as dramatic as that. I'd love to know your immediate thoughts, your immediate reaction to that one. So that was MP Berkowitz. Incredible. Wow. Music, I think, Phil. So from another seat of democracy, a more international affair now. I thought this was definitely worth sharing if you haven't seen it, because at United Nations meeting, Israel again showed their contempt for the rest of the world, contempt for international law, and the delegate from Pakistan simply had enough. Simply had enough at this point. Of course, Pakistan helped to facilitate so-called recent ceasefires, etc. They're certainly no they're onions when it comes to the activities of Israel. Well, it's put so succinctly within the clip. We'll just get on with it.
The representative of Pakistan has asked for the floor to make a further statement. I give them the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am obliged to take the floor to respond to some comments. The representative of Israel perhaps did not listen attentively to all council members and other speakers in today's debate. And in our view, it is unacceptable, indeed ludicrous, for an aggressor, an occupier, a serial violator of UN Charter and international law, that is Israel, to abuse this chamber and disrespect the sanctity of this council. And this is not the first time. And by pointing fingers on others, baseless assertions primarily aimed at masking its own illegal actions and violations of international law. President, but that's not at all surprising. It is an occupier that does not listen to anyone, that does not pay heed to any advice, even from its friends, if there are any left.
Even there, right there, he might appear as though he's pretending to listen, but what he's actually doing there is probably sitting and thinking, how can I do more genocide? How can I do more war crime? Even as he's being called out for his own ignorance. Probably trained to put his hands into that position and then just, what's he thinking? Did I leave the iron on?
That refutes, and not just refutes, it threatens members of the international community, international media, international human rights and humanitarian organizations. Doesn't listen to the ICJ or the ICC, and threatens the UN and its senior officials. And it does that with impunity, shielded by its apologists who time and again acquiesce in its illegal actions and defiance of the international community. And like all occupiers, despite being the aggressor, it feigns and plays the victim. But today it is totally exposed.
I really think I left the iron on.
President, this council has spent decades discussing the situation in the Middle East and the Palestinian question. Meeting after meeting, we devote hours to this agenda. It is not because of anyone else. It is because of Israel that refuses to vacate its illegal occupation and that blatantly violates the resolutions of this council. It's because of that we have these discussions. Israel also chose to refer to an unrelated incident and make misleading remarks regarding Pakistan in an effort to justify its own illegal actions and violations of international law. Pakistan's position on that incident has been clearly stated and is publicly available. The international community is well aware of Pakistan's frontline role and sacrifices in the international community's fight against terrorism. The entire world, including our partners, acknowledge that Al-Qaeda was largely decimated due to Pakistan's counterterrorism efforts. And we remain committed in this global, collective endeavor. We cannot accept insinuations from an irresponsible rogue state that is, in fact, the perpetrator of worst kind of state terrorism that we are witnessing in Gaza and, in fact, in the occupied Palestinian territories for decades. And we reject any false analogy, as has also been done by Qatar. For whatever way it interprets the statements in this council, the occupying power must go back and read carefully the statement issued by the Security Council today.
Delegate from Pakistan, they're calling out Israel to their faces. And he's right. He's absolutely right on all counts. They still think the world is going to treat them like the oppressed, like the victims in a whole number of scenarios now. Not just in their annexation and occupation of Palestinian land, but also now in southern Lebanon. Attacks also, of course, continuing against Iran. Let's see what the latest on the blockade is, people. If there's anything new since it came on stream. Last I saw, it wasn't being pretty effective. Vessels were still getting through. Fortunately, there haven't been any shots fired yet. It's not descended into naval warfare or anything. Although there were some rumours, perhaps wishful thinking, I guess, that the the USS George W. Bush had been successfully targeted. However, it was soon confirmed that that particular vessel is currently off the coast of South Africa, so that's not true. If you hear that one flying around the rumour mill. Okay, bullet points. Israel and Lebanon agree to launch direct negotiations after talks today in Washington, D.C. US, no, bother read anything the US says. The US says no ships have passed through. That means they probably have. It's very simple to translate, you know. Oh, they've done a verify, actually. Okay, I'll buy it for one quick moment. Let's scroll down. Several ships cross the straits and leave Iranian ports. Several. That's a different word than none or zero, isn't it? Several. So if you want to read this in Ros Atkins' voice in your own heads, the verify. But no, what does it say? At least 4 Iran-linked ships, including 2 that visited Iranian ports, crossed the strait on Tuesday. A further 3 ships that weren't linked to Iran were seen to have crossed the straits after the blockade started at 2 PM Greenwich Mean Time. See what comes of the negotiations between Israel and Lebanon. However, one of the words on the street, worryingly, is that Lebanon might be on the verge of agreeing to completely disarm Hezbollah, which would be their last defence, let's be honest, against Israel and the IDF. Okay, talks have concluded. Oil's come down a bit, that was a few hours ago. So talks have finished, negotiations coming up. Talks and negotiations aren't the same thing, apparently. Okay, the talks are over. Okay, what's happening? We have agreed to talk to one another. You just spoke to one another. Why didn't you say what you had to say in the talking to one another just then? Well, still have to wait, it looks. But this is a further illegal act and an act of war, as JK says in the chat. Also breaks ceasefire agreements. Ceasefire, schmeasefire, as far as Israel are always concerned, and the United States of America, of course. Goes without saying. Okay, that appears to be the bulk of the latest where that's concerned. More updates on future streams and content, hit the thumbs up button on this stream. Good people. Now, we've brought up a few times how rising oil prices affect energy prices, affect food prices, and this is also twinned with the effects of the climate crisis. As I said, as I've made mention of many times on the channel, as both a political and environmental campaigner and activist, so you're going to see an example here of just how sharply and steeply prices can rise due to extreme weather events, which are getting more frequent and more severe as the years go by. Now, with an increasing demand for food, with a rising global population, that will also be met by literally a lack of land to grow enough food on for everybody. In fact, there's going to be less than we have at the moment, even though the population does look set to increase. And as much as 50% less food to go around, as many areas of the globe become so affected by extreme weather and the climate crisis that you're unable to grow even the most basic foodstuffs. For example, one area that's set to be hit the hardest is Ukraine, which produces about 75% of the world's wheat, I believe. In case you didn't already know that. But this example I'm going to show you is a lot closer to home, which you might recognise by the accent. And this is a grocer from not too far away from where this stream's coming to you from, which you'll tell by the accent. A wholesale grocer, and he's just going to illustrate how ridiculous some of these prices are. This is today. This is, you know, spoken about the future, or the not too distant future, of course, where the effects of the climate crisis are concerned. This is happening today. This is now.
Yeah, Lisa. Just to explain to you one or two things today. Got Spanish broccoli there. This time last week, a box of broccoli like that, I paid £9.90. So 6 kilo of broccoli last Friday cost me £9.90. We buy 20 boxes on a Friday. Today, this broccoli, same weight, Spanish broccoli, cost me £24 a box. So 15 quid a box or so dearer than this time last week.
Did you get that? Did you get that?
Then we move across here.
Tomatoes, there's more.
Moroccan tomatoes. This time of year, you'd expect to pay somewhere between £6.50, £7 a box for tomatoes. I'm sure there's people watching this in the trade who'll understand what I'm saying. So let's say 7 quid normally. This morning, £20.
From 7 to 20. From 7 to 20. That's almost trebling in price.
£20 a box, I've paid.
Trebling in price. We're not talking about 10% increases, 15, whatnot. 300%. This is bad. It'll get worse.
For that tomato this morning. Bit of cherry vine, 3 kilo cherry vine. Again, ordinarily you'd be paid somewhere around, let's say 9-10 quid ordinarily. This morning.
Alright, so 9-10. Anybody want to take a quick guess? 9, 10. So it's, what, up to 13, 14 maybe, if things were getting pretty bad.
£17.50.
17.50. 17.50.
Vine tomatoes.
This is today. This is today. This is here in northwest England. This isn't... I didn't film this, by the way. It's not my uncle or anything, or whatever.
These are from Belgium. They're just...
So Belgium. Again, we've had Spanish produce, Moroccan produce, which of course extreme north of Africa, and now Belgian. We're not talking about Australia or New Zealand here. It's having to come from halfway around the world.
Got started nicely. They're only 5 kilo boxes. Again, we'd expect to be paying somewhere like £8-9 a box for them this time of year. £18 this morning.
I don't do politics, mate, so I get them for the original price, you see. And we go full circle with the stream in a poetic fashion. So, I've got no interest in politics whatsoever. This doesn't affect me.
And the final one, iceberg lettuce.
Tomatoes are woke anyway, and these are all woke foods, aren't they? What's wrong with pies full of flags?
12 in a box. This time of year, I would expect the normal price for something like that would be $6.60, $7.20 a box, so costing us about 60p a head. That's what I would normally expect to be paying. This morning, that cost £1.10 per head, $13.20 a box. On that...
Christ. Seriously, all these serious increases. Some of us will die, yeah, Graham. And Aaron, yeah, this is happening now. People like Professor Bill Maguire, who I mentioned a bit earlier, Kevin Anderson, other great climate scientists. We're talking about professionals, former government and UN advisors, immensely qualified. Professor Emeritus at University College of London in Bill Maguire's case. These people know the stuff, and they've said complete collapse between 2035 and 2040. And it's very difficult to argue with that when you see things like this. Because that is the thing. That is the essence of it, people. Before the very worst elements in terms of environment and weather start to affect us as a species, it will be the food shortages that lead to breakdown in societies. We're talking about famine and wars, last grasps for resources, for energy, including clean water as well. Which I hear is sort of essential for human life.
That little bit of stuff there, that small pallet,
My left eye will do you some science.
there's over £1,000 worth of produce, and that, I'm afraid, is how it's going to be for the next few weeks.
All of that now costs £1,000 just on, what, a pallet or so? A couple of pallets, I think he said. Could you imagine you walk into a wholesaler's or even a supermarket and you see that and, oh, go on, how much for the lot? £1,000. And that's how much he's got to pay for them. He obviously then sells them on in smaller quantities, has to make a living off of that in the capitalist framework, of course. So for the consumer, it is an even bigger increase.
These shortages are all caused by the bad weather they've had in Spain when they were planting. It's been
All caused by weather. They can't plant.
unusually cold, they've had floods, they've had the same weather in sort of Portugal.
Completely off-season temperatures mixed with severe and repeated flooding. If you remember, a couple of years ago, we saw those incredible scenes of the streets of Valencia, when Valencia was flooded and hundreds of cars piled on top of one another. Afterwards, the aftermath of that. I also recall, statistically, perhaps 3-4 years ago, and it's happened since, but that was the first time that the ground temperature in Spain reached 60 degrees Celsius. 60. You can't grow. You can't grow food in those kind of conditions. When it's either between that and a flood. So it will be the scarcity, which leads to the worst societal effects of climate change first. Believe me, people. We can stop it, we can fight it, we can fight the powers that be. We have alternative systems. We have alternative technologies, as I can see being mentioned in chat as well. But we have to take the power to be able to implement those different systems and technologies. And we do that together. Something else we on My Left Eye do is always give a shout out to our marvellous members, the brilliant Brew crew. Thank you very much to everybody whose names you can see on screen. Thanks for renewing your memberships recently and gifting to others. Other ways that you can help to support this stream are with super chat still open, super stickers if you're watching live, super thanks if you watch it back later on. If you don't have the means to help support us with via YouTube, there's a Buy Me a Coffee page in the description of any content on the channel, so you find the link right there. Thanks again everybody, as well as for gifting us hype points as well on recent content. Please check out a recent video on your mobile devices if you'd like to do the same. Also sharing us on social media as well. Shout out to people who've been doing that lately. Give us a follow at My Left Eye UK while you're there. Thank you very much everybody. However you choose to support this independent, alternative political media channel. We're about to go in for a raid, and I thought we'll be slightly biased and go for Katie Marshall again. We did feature in a collaboration episode recently with Andrew Luke and Screen Cleaner. Another plug for that. Check that out in our recent content as well. Oh, Katie Marshall also features as well as me in interviews about the channel. It's PMQs tomorrow, people. It's back. And so, Keith's catchphrases will also return. So you know the time, you know the place, people. It's the Brews at 10. I'll see you there. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on that. Do hit thumbs up and subscribe if you don't already subscribe to Katie Marshall's channel when we get over for the raid. All that remains for me to say here, though, is power to the people, free Palestine, Sudan, Lebanon, and Yemen. Don't let the bastards grind you down. Don't watch the news. Be the news. My Left, I'll be seeing you soon. Good night.
The door is open and you can leave.
It's what Hitler and Goering did, and it is textbook. And if you think the next time it happens, we're gonna recognize it because they're wearing scary uniforms, you're out of your damn mind.